Welcome to the Birth Lounge Podcast, an empowering space for expecting and new parents to hear candid conversations with experts, support your mental health, and learn the tips and tricks that thousands of parents have used to craft their ideal birth. We will answer all of your questions, the scary ones and the weird ones, to help calm your fears and feel confident going into your birth. I'm going to help you redefine what birth and motherhood looks like and how to embrace your journey. I've intentionally crafted a list of experts to help you navigate pregnancy, explore your birth options, and plan for postpartum so that it can be a time of soaking in your tiny human. We're going to go there on all the hard topics so that you can dive deep into finding your confidence and freeing yourself from fears around birth. With over 10 years of experience in family education and a master's degree in human development and family studies, I created this podcast as a way to share the resources parents need to make educated and informed decisions about their care in pregnancy and childbirth. This is a birth community driven by evidence-based information and research in hopes to help you explore your options, understand your rights, and know what choices you have along the way when it comes to birth and beyond. I'm your host, HeHe. Now let's get to the good stuff. Ana, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me, HeHe.
Thanks for being here. I know that this is obviously a heavier topic that I think a lot of people feel maybe taboo. And when we talk about stillbirth, it can feel uncomfortable. But a previous episode, I had Dr. Heather Florescu on, and we talked about preventing stillbirth through understanding our placenta and measuring our placenta. And today, you and I are going to be talking about your story of loss of your sweet son, Owen, and how parents can actually take control of their pregnancy and be an advocate in their pregnancy and have the confidence to truly navigate the healthcare system to prevent stillbirth if they encounter some concerning symptoms or things in their pregnancy. So I think a good place for us to start before we dive too far in the conversation is actually defining preventable stillbirth. Is that opposed to not preventable stillbirth, natural stillbirth, statistical stillbirth? What does this mean?
What I think about the word prevention is that it's really up to whoever's using it. For myself, in my case, I did feel like my son's loss was preventable, but it wasn't prevented in the pregnancy because they didn't look for certain factors. And it can be easily be said about a lot of losses, like there are some situations where you do see there was a risk or there was some kind of sign that the mother noticed and wasn't taken to the next step. So that's why we think there's prevention available. And of course, we always say not every stillbirth is preventable, and we don't want any parent to ever feel like it was their fault, or even for the providers, they are trying their best, but they may not be doing everything the same way for every patient, because there is statistics involved where you see 81% of stillbirths occur to women who had no risk factors when they began their pregnancy,
Wow.
like myself. So I was a low risk patient. I was not considered high risk for stillbirth. There was nothing about me. Even after my loss, I Googled it because I was like, what just happened? Like my doctors just told me sometimes healthy babies just die. We don't know what happened. We're so sorry for your loss, and just brushed it off. And I couldn't live with that. Obviously, as a mom and somebody who had been doing everything right, I was really concerned about my health, my baby. I already had a child prior, so I really had no factors. And I looked online and I'm looking it up. I'm like, none of this is me. Nothing of this describes me. I didn't smoke, of course. I made all my appointments, take my prenatals. Like a lot of those factors that are listed is that does not apply to me or my pregnancy. So what the heck happened here? So in retrospect, I'm like, now that I actually know the cause, because I had to do a lot of personal digging for many years, and it took me 5 years to find a cause of death through a placenta pathologist that researched it for me, and it was due to cord compressions. Now I have more knowledge and I can say, why weren't they checking the cord? That could have helped prevent it. He had a hypercoiled cord, which if you think about you're using a blow dryer and it starts to get tangled up, it's less flow. That's how my son's cord was, and it was short as well. So none of that was identified in the pregnancy, and I should have been a high-risk patient at this point, but I wasn't. There are issues in pregnancy that develop as you're pregnant, so you may not have any risk factors for stillbirth, but then they come along, and if they're not screening for them or you're not aware of the risk and you're not bringing it up to your doctor, if there's a change in fetal movement, then you can become at risk for stillbirth and it can happen. But I don't really feel like it's accidental. I feel like they're just not doing enough for every patient.
Part of that goes back to not all doctors having all the correct training, right? Or updated information. Like you were told healthy babies just die. That is not true. We know that's not true. It goes back to the idea of drink a cold glass of water, drink some juice, jiggle your baby, put something cold on your belly. Let's see if we can get your baby to respond and react. One of the things I learned being in this community as an advocate and an observer, I obviously have never experienced loss for myself, but most of you knew something was wrong. And that, I think, for me, is probably the most heart-shattering thing. I cried a lot when I first started this journey, and I learned a lot of really terrible, awful things that, like you said, we could have done to prevent these losses. And it hurt me. I'm a very sensitive person. I feel things very deeply, and this obviously is a subject that I feel super deeply. But the fact that most moms knew and they said something and they brought it to their doctor's attention, and their doctors either didn't know enough or didn't do enough or just flat out dismissed these moms shattered me to a place of no return where I was like, that's it. I literally have no choice but to be on this train and help these people because that is so far beyond anything acceptable. I really couldn't wrap my mind around it because I had always thought, and I think a lot of people share this, that stillbirth just happens sometimes and we don't really know why. We can't really prevent it. But when I started to dip my toes in this water, I learned, wow, there's actually so much we can do to prevent this. We're just not doing it.
Hmm. No, I completely agree. And the one interesting thing is that I think I relate a lot to all your listeners here that probably are thinking like, I just want a low intervention. I just want low risk. I am low risk. I don't need extra things. But now that it happened to me, I'm like, I want all the things. I want all the tests. I'm such in a different space now. But even that, trusting the mother's voice is like key. We don't even need to get an ultrasound machine out here. The funny thing is, NST machine, it's like a system that they use to check your baby's movements and all the things. Like when you come in, you're really worried, they put that belt on your belly and start to check everything. That is not 100%. It's really not predictive at all. When they do that, they're just seeing how your baby's doing at that time, in that segment of time. So we might be on a monitor for 30 minutes. And if they're worried they're not seeing enough kicks going on or whatever they're looking for, they might keep you a little bit longer. If they see enough, they're like, oh, you're fine, baby's fine, go home. And you're like, okay, I'm gonna go home. The next day, your baby might still pass away. And it's happened to many people that I know. And it's because that does not predict that the next few hours are gonna remain the same. And if the mom's still worried, which Dr. Florescu explained in her episode, you should keep her there. You should continue to listen to her and keep looking or keep her on monitor overnight, however you need to do it to be able to catch it because it might not happen in that exact moment. And sadly, a lot of stillbirths actually happen overnight, like the late hours. And it has to do with sleeping as well. We don't all get educated on side sleeping, which is important as in the third trimester. So you don't put pressure on the vein there and you can have good flow and everything to the placenta. So if you wake up at night, it's actually a great thing. Like I know we hate it. We're like, we're drinking so much water and it's waking us up and we have to keep getting up. But that allows your baby time to adjust. If they get in a bad position on top of their cord, however, then they get a chance to wiggle around and get off of it and they're fine. And so at night, it can be really risky. And a lot of times too, I think that has to do with our own selves. I don't want to go to the doctor right now. It feels a little bit off, but it's the middle of the night. I don't want to bother everyone in the house or just I'm overreacting. There's a lot of this self-talk. And really what you should be telling yourself is, I feel it's off. I'm going in right now and I'm going to get checked
Mm-hmm.
out. And
Mm-hmm.
that's actually what I did the night my son passed away. And it was really just an intuition thing. Like it was no monitor. There's no machine telling me there's something going off. I just felt a change of movement. My son always was super active, so I wasn't so concerned with kick counting and no one really emphasized that either. But I always thought, oh, when doctors ask me or my nurses, is your baby moving okay today? How they mention it very slightly. And I'd be like, yeah, of course, he's always moving. He's super active. So there was never a full discussion of this is your way to monitor your baby's well-being. Make sure you come in if you feel a change. No emphasis on it. But regardless, the night that it happened, I did feel a change. And I was like, this is a little weird. And it was really late. Even when I went to tell my husband, I'm going to go to the ER, he was like, let me feel your belly. And he felt it. And he said, he's still moving. He's okay. He's probably sleeping. But I still had this alarm bell inside of me. It was just like, it's wrong. Something's wrong. My belly was just not as tight too, I think because he became limp, trying to conserve energy. So I was like, I'm going in, honey, and just stay home. We had a daughter, she was 4. I was like, just stay with her. She's sleeping. I'll just come right back. And we went to the closest hospital. And I get there just in tears about it. And everyone's just telling me, everything's going to be okay, honey. We're just going to get you checked in, taking their sweet time with the whole system, putting it in the computer when I get in the room, get a robe on, come back out. Finally, they put the monitor on. And I heard the heartbeat and I was like, he's alive. Thank God. I'm on speaker with my husband. I was like, I'll be home soon, honey. I guess I was freaking out for nothing. And then next thing you know, they're doing an ultrasound. Again, no communication. And I have a lot of birth trauma, which is, partly because of the lack of communication, all these steps. But they were just like doing it. And I was like, is it still a boy? Like just trying to break the ice. Like someone talked to me here. No one had said a word. And she's, I don't check for that when I do these kind of things. And I was like, what are you doing then? It was just like disregarding me as a human. I'm sitting there laying there waiting to be told I can go home now. My baby's okay. So next thing they do come in for me and they're checking and they're like, how's the heart rate doing? And the woman was annoyed. Like she was in the middle of her ultrasound. She's okay. She checks it and tells them and they're like, okay, doctor's here now. We're going to take you into surgery. Flying me in there while I'm signing paperwork. And I'm like, what's happening? My husband's not here. I would really like him to be at the birth of my child. Like, well, you can call, but he probably won't make it. I call on speaker. My husband's, don't worry, honey, I'll be right there and everything will be okay. And he got a friend to come watch my daughter and he flew over. But meanwhile, I'm just going to be put under. And again, no communication. I didn't know I was being put under until they had a mask on my face. And I'm like, I'm going to die. What is happening? I'm just starting to pray. God, please, I have to live. I have a daughter, I have a husband. I can't just die here. And meanwhile, praying for my son to survive this. And I was just thinking I'd wake up and he'd be in the NICU because he was still a little young. He was 31 weeks and 2 days. So I was worried about that, but never imagining that he was not going to come out of it. And then when my husband gets there, they informed him and gave him my son a longer living. And I would look like I had passed. I was laying there on the table because I had been cut open so quickly. And thank God I came out. When I wake up, they tell me that he died. And I'm just like, oh my God, like just screaming like a wounded animal. I'm just like, how did this happen? And I just kept asking for my baby and finally get to meet Owen. And he was perfect. And literally, that was the hardest thing about this whole thing is that my son is perfect. There was nothing wrong with him. I think a lot of people misunderstand. Oh, it must have been a sick baby. Genetically must be something wrong. The mom must have done something. There must have been something wrong in the pregnancy. And I can tell you that was not the case, like at all in my situation and in so many others. So that's what's really hard to live with as a lost mom, because I'm like, it was literally the cord and they weren't looking at it. No one looked at the cord. They let him die. And that's why I fight so hard for other moms, because I'm like, you can't just let this happen. You can't just say sometimes healthy babies should just die. You just let them die. Why? They're worth so much. I would have paid for extra scans if needed. And that should just be part of routine care. They're doing it for high-risk patients. They do it for twins, obviously. But why stratify it to only certain pregnancies get this? The cord connects to the lifeline, which is the placenta, which you discussed in the previous episode, is so ignored as well. That's nurturing your child. That's keeping your baby alive. Why are we just looking at the growth of the baby? Of course, my baby grew. He was healthy. He was this big. This is the bear I carry around. You saw him. I'm holding him now in DC, and he's the size of my son, lengthwise and weight-wise. So I carry him as an advocate just so I can put him in the hands of legislators and say, this is a baby that should be here. Look at this baby's weight and length. Like, it's not a pregnancy loss. Like, people might just want to, oh, just go have another baby. You just lost one. That's no big deal. I gave birth to a child that I buried. That is a trauma that lives in me for the rest of my life. and my husband will never be the same. We have like severe PTSD and trauma, and even with our living kids, like it's hard to just feel okay ever. And we don't want anyone to go through that. So if I have to put my trauma out there for people to learn from it, I'm going to do that. And it sucks. I'm sick every week. I have a migraine every week going through this physical trauma. Like, why do I want to tell my story? I didn't want to tell today, but I did because there are important parts of it. And I do think it helps save lives and it will help people to understand the issue. And it's very severe. It's 21,000 babies a year. That's a lot of families going through this. And that's prevention wise, which is what I love to focus on because we all need support. We all need the bereavement support. So I'm glad you did that episode too. But there is a lot we can do to keep people from even being in these shoes, and we should be doing it. And we know like at least 25% or a third, we could say, are preventable by just normal tools like kid counting, education for all, which you and I both have been working hard to make sure is going to happen. And we're celebrating this week. Soon we'll have the passage of the Stillbirth Prevention Act, which hopefully Biden's signing right now. We don't know when he's going to sign it. We all were advocating around the country, a lot of parents involved with this push for empowered pregnancy, the charity that I'm a co-founder of. We brought a lot of parents to DC multiple times and ourselves doing it on the phone. Like we have so many families that just rallied around these bills, and it's hard to have hope. And I don't know what you felt about it when we were doing it, but they are listening, but are they going to do it? Are they really letting it sink in? Do they hear me talking about my baby that passed away that should be here? And are they going to change something? Are they going to let us improve care here? And thank God they did. They're signing, it was unanimous, right? The House unanimously passed it. The Senate as well said it was great. Let's go ahead and push it through. And that's Republicans and Democrats coming together on an issue, which who would think that would happen right now?
Yeah, especially now.
I mean,
Especially in this climate.
we're in a moment and it's great. No, nothing can replace our children and the parents that alongside me are fighting for this. But it's not going to be like the most joyous day. Like I say, it's very bittersweet for me. I'm very, very grateful and I'm very proud of our families and the kids that really are the reason this is happening. But regardless, it's not going to bring our children back. We are devastated for the rest of our lives. And the only joy I get is that they didn't die in vain. People are going to change. Like it's not just going to happen and we're all just going to continue business as usual because it shouldn't be how it happens. And that's the greatest tragedy after the loss that people brushed us away. And I'm like, all I want is for you guys to learn. I just want you to do something different. Don't let a baby die after Owen. And I didn't get that respect. My husband and I tried to have multiple meetings and they never brought out our paperwork in front of us. There's just no process here in our country. And it's another big issue that we don't do debriefings with the parents after a loss. It's not a requirement. Maybe some hospitals do it, but I have never heard of a really intense debriefing like they do in other countries where you have to be told, okay, we're looking at what happened in the care. This might have been an area where we could have done better, or this is a missed opportunity. So I would love to see that happen one day. Maybe that needs to be another bill that we fight for. We deserve that, and also will help them improve their care, and it will help us have better care after loss if we want to have another child, because God forbid it should repeat itself, and it does. You have a higher risk of stillbirth after stillbirth. So you don't want to go into the pregnancy without the knowledge of what happened prior. You need that. So we work really hard to try to give parents some tools, but medically, like you were chatting with me earlier, we don't have enough people who can do the pathology on these babies. It's just never been a focus of research or any kind of funding.
Yeah. I, for one, will spend as many years on Capitol Hill as needed to make this change and to make sure that we are getting our nation's stillbirth rates as low as possible, because I agree with you. I think that's what we deserve. Okay, you hit on several good points, and so I want to take them and break them down. I'd love to hear about your pregnancy. I think a lot of listeners were, and this is something I was shocked when I first met you in Washington, that Owen was your second baby.
Mhm.
A lot of stillbirth parents, it's their first baby. for you, this was not the case. Can you tell us about anything that you had shared about your pregnancy? Was there any other signs other than the decreased fetal movement? And also, do you feel like when you had gone into the hospital, if they had been speedy and more responsive, do you think Owen would still be here with us?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh,
So as a pregnancy, there was a difference. So first of all, my first daughter, I had a different doctor. He wasn't the greatest in the delivery setting. I'll say he didn't have the bedside manner that I needed. So when it happened, I was like, you know what? I don't like how I was treated. I'm gonna go somewhere else. But of course, in hindsight, I regret it because as annoying and not kind that he was at the delivery, he was really detailed and he was his own, like he's a PPO, one of those doctors that you only see him, was his own office. So like he would even sit inside of the ultrasounds with the technician and stop her if he thought, oh, you missed something, go back. I want to see that. A lot more, I think, is writing on it for someone like that too, because it's his own practice. He has a name and he has reviews and he doesn't want to have babies die under him and that kind of thing. But I didn't realize at the time. So I had switched to a group and a lot of us get cared by a group. So that's what you get with, I had an HMO plan. So they actually bounce you around, seeing different OBs in the practice, especially if you're low risk. They, oh, it doesn't matter who, because at the end of the day, we're all doing the same things. We're doing the same tests. And when you come in for delivery, you're not going to know the doctor unless you did this, seeing different doctors. So I was like, okay, whatever. I'm having my second pregnancy, no issues. I know how to be pregnant. I know how to babies. I had to deliver her by C-section, but I was ready to do another one. And I was like, this is fine for me. But in hindsight, that too was a mistake because they say consistency of care is huge for prevention. And I didn't know that. And so,
and is that because you want a doctor that gets to know your pregnancy and gets to know you? And when you go in with a complaint, they're much less likely to brush you off if they know you and have an established relationship with you.
absolutely. So after I was like, no one really knew me or Owen. No one had any clue what was
Are
going on.
normal.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so that's why now when we advocate too, we say hire a doula if you can, or bring some support person that's like back you up and really know you, like you said, because if you do have to have that type of care, sometimes it's your only choice.
Mm.
We have a lot of maternity care deserts in the country now where you can't even find an OB for hours. So you might have to go to who you have to go to, but I do think it's important if you can to try to find a consistent care provider. So that was one misstep for me. But again, it's not anyone's fault. And I don't think it was my fault. I thought that's the right thing to do. When they were doing their thing, I was fine. And then also there was a situation actually in the pregnancy where I did feel very weak in the last months. And I reported that multiple times. And all they told me was, oh, just take some more iron. You look a little bit low, but that's about it. So they didn't check. They didn't like look and see like, why is she feeling so faint? To the point where I quit my job. I was really worried. I was like, I can't drive for an hour and almost faint in the car because I would get really just almost dizzy in the mornings, especially when I'd get ready. I'd do my makeup just sitting down. And I'm like, this doesn't feel normal, but it's my second pregnancy. I'm a little bit older. I'm being told it's normal. I'm getting more iron. It should be fine. It should even out. Maybe once I get through this little period, it'll be okay. So I had no clue. And I can't still tell you that was necessarily a sign, but I do think on pregnancy, if the mom doesn't feel well, there's some connections going on there. And maybe it was something with the blood flowing, not as great as it should have between us. So I do think he could have at that point upped my care and sent me for another ultrasound or looked the cord or maybe put me with a high risk doctor or something at that point, but that didn't happen. Just keep
Seeing you
treating.
more often, just additional monitoring, additional scans, things like that.
Yeah. When
Something.
at the end, I was like, I hardly ever saw Owen because with the normal low risk care, they hardly ever do any ultrasounds. And with Naomi, because it was with this very intense doctor, he loved to do it. Every time I come in, I'd see my daughter. And I had so many pictures of her on the ultrasounds. And with Owen, I was like, I didn't get that many. I really don't. And in standard care, you don't. And that's something we do push for too now, is like everyone should get this third trimester ultrasound. Not everyone does it because they're just like, everything's growing, baby's growing, everything's looking good, your blood test, everything's normal. So we don't have to look at your baby until delivery, like just come in and deliver. And it's like, really? You're just gonna stop checking the baby and there's growth restrictions that can be happening and things like that have been causes of stillbirth, but you're just not gonna look.
Mm.
Gonna assume that the baby's still growing and the placenta is growing normally, all the things that we advocate for. So it doesn't feel great after loss. I do feel like there were issues where I'm like, man, if only I knew what I know now and I could have really fought with this guy and who knows if I could have asked for a second opinion or something, but that's my what ifs. I don't want anyone else to live with that.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. I know it's really tough to share Owen's story over and over again, and I know that am very grateful for you being here, and so is our audience for sure. You had mentioned that the hospital staff wasn't awesome in their response to you. I'd love to hear about what patients should be expecting. What are we expecting when we call and say, I think something is wrong? And then I would also love to hear what you should be receiving if you experience a loss. And if you're not getting that type of care on either end in pregnancy or postpartum, what do you do about that? How do you get the care that you deserve?
The sad thing is, I think everyone just assumed that I was wrong in a sense. Like when I came in, they're just like, everything's gonna be fine, honey. That whole tone. I was like, they didn't know. I mean, they hadn't checked yet. But I think in the majority of
Mm,
cases, they just don't assume stillbirth's gonna happen. Like it's so maybe
like
uncommon in one setting.
lackadaisical, they're just la-ti-da.
It's not like it's a low risk because it's 1 out of 170 pregnancies. But if you think about like how many pregnancies they have to see before that happens to them, especially to a doctor individually, it takes a little while for them to see one. So when it does, it's almost like a fluke. They do look at it like, oh, bad luck. This is the one that it happened to. And they're not automatically looking to see like why it happens. I personally feel like there should have been much more urgency, of course, and the opportunity to save a child. It's just we don't know how much time we have. So why go slow? Like even the NICU doctor who was supposed to be there when I delivered didn't get there until 14 minutes, pretty much like 10 minutes, but she started working on my son 14 minutes after he was delivered. Meanwhile, there was a NICU team of nurses, but they were a lower level NICU team. And so they were doing things, but they were failing. And I always say, if she had only rushed
In
there,
there.
because there was a life on the line, and they all knew it for an hour. It took an hour for this on-call doctor to arrive to deliver me. If she was in the room ready to go, because we have a baby who is preemie here coming out that might be in bad shape, and she could have started helping right from the get-go, I think that he had a better chance because he did actually get a heartbeat when she finally arrived. She put this line to his umbilical cord with some medication that started the heart, and he had a heartbeat, but it didn't hold. And it was like 14 minutes after, of course it didn't. He had so much damage already to all the organs. There's a 1 minute time that you have to breathe, basically. It's the golden minute of life. And so if he didn't breathe in that 1 minute, it's done. So they were working on him for 30 minutes after, and then of course they gave up once my husband came in and they told him your son didn't make it, and they were able to call the time of death in front of him and everything like that. But it was just like, I think they just missed so many moments. And some of the doctors we do know who are really great who say you have to treat every pregnancy like there's a life to lose because
There is
that
a
is,
life to lose. There are two lives to lose in
yeah,
every
there are.
pregnancy.
Yeah, or more, right? Multiples. In that case, no, they didn't treat it like that. I forgot where I was even going with that one. But there are opportunities to save babies, and it's important for us to keep talking about it. And um,
Yeah. So when you call the hospital and you say, I think something's wrong with my baby, if you get any answer other than come in, we want to see you, you should just get in your car and go. You don't need
absolutely.
permission to
Yeah,
go
and
to the hospital.
that's the one part I was gonna say is that when I called, I did say something's off. I've been trying to kick count for 2 hours because that's what I read about, and that's what I had been told about. And nothing's the same. It feels like he's just hardly moving. The person was like, eat a meal and then try again for another 2 hours, and then you can come here if you still feel something's off. And I'm like, why in the world did that person say that? I literally told them that I'm scared, like something's off. It's been 2 hours already. The delay there, like that was ridiculous. But of course, I didn't do that. I just was like so freaked out. I started dressing myself and getting ready to go. I put some food in my mouth quickly and I was like, I'm running over there. But that was terrible advice, and that is often given. Definitely, if you are concerned, the only reason to call is to prep your doctor that you're on the way. Just say, pull my
I'm
charts.
coming.
get ready, I'm coming, I feel off, I want to be checked out right now. And then when you walk in the door, the same thing. They do so much of this, oh, I got to input you in the computer. And you're just trying to be a good patient, not get in the way and follow the process. But meanwhile, somebody might be like just taking their sweet time there. And you're just like, my child could be in danger here. You need to help me right away. So you need to be more strong on that end too, because you never know. Some people may not see it as an urgency.
And do you think it's okay to say, listen, I'm really concerned. Can you please do this a little bit more speedily? Listen, I can feel my baby is getting weaker and weaker as we wait. Please get somebody in here immediately. I am requesting immediate care.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's weird that we have to say that, right?
Yeah, it feels weird for sure. It
But yeah.
feels as if they're not worried, if they're not concerned, then I should be able, as the patient, to take a deep breath of kind of reassurance. But I think there's a lot of stories out there that kind of proves no, your intuition will always override their lack of concern. And it should. You should listen to your intuition over anything.
And I want to highlight that as much as we talk about this, and maybe people have already gone to the next episode, it's important for you to listen and understand that there is a chance to save a baby. This is the moment.
Yeah.
You're kick counting and you're doing that daily after your 26 weeks when you start to feel a pattern and you start to feel something's off and you say, I'm just going to go. There might be still ample time for interventions. And that's why you need to trust your intuition, go in right away, get checked out every time, stay, insist on staying if you're still feeling off. If you want a second opinion, get that second opinion. You're already the mother of this baby, and some people might try to negate your feelings and stuff like that. But listen to HeHe. You're going to get a lot of great advice from her. You know your baby best, and you need to keep being that mom. You're a mama bear. You're going to be that mama. When that baby comes out, you need to keep doing it every appointment, every time you feel off. And you're never going to regret that. You
Yeah.
might feel bad for doing it. You might feel like you're being too fussy or something, but you might feel like they know better. They're doctors. They got the coat on. I'm sorry. Like at the end of the day, they don't have that baby in their belly. They're not feeling what you're feeling.
Yeah,
And
this is just
don't
another
worry.
Wednesday in the office for them. For you, this is a very defining moment of you and your baby's life, right? This is a pivotal moment in life for sure. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh,
I
full
know.
body chills. It's
I know.
like
And I
all
want to
over
say that
me.
because I hope people realize that you can save the baby's life. We have a lot of stories that now are coming to us from Push that they're like, we're calling them safe arrivals. And it just warms my heart. It makes me so happy because they say, if I hadn't listened to the tips that you gave or just the advice to keep speaking out, use your mom voice, we call it. It came from, I think, the Preeclamptic Foundation, but we like to encourage women to keep pushing for yourself and your baby. And you can bring that baby home safely. And we do have evidence of that through other programs as well. A lot of people don't trust kick counting. They think, oh, that's so. You have had battles with some people who don't believe in all the same things we do. You have to trust your intuition as a mom, regardless if you counted the number or it's just a feeling. Like my son went limp, he was limper.
Mm,
I could feel my belly felt different. It wasn't the fullness that I experienced the whole time. So whatever it is, you don't have to give them a number. You don't have to prove yourself. Just
yeah.
keep going in there and make sure they take care of you and your baby.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I mentioned in the episode with Dr. Florescu was if you don't feel assured by what we have found, don't leave.
Hmm.
Just stay. If you don't feel confident in the information that you're getting and the answers that you're getting from your doctor, you don't have to leave because your intuition, for sure, it's telling you something. Okay, for our healthcare listeners out there, what is your advice to them? How should people respond when they are caring for someone who has experienced a loss? We have obviously all heard stories of healthcare professionals doing inappropriate things and maybe doing what they think is best, but it's not best, and they just don't know how to comfort someone who has lost a baby. What are you, as a lost parent, looking for in that moment? How can someone caring for you be the best support?
The reality is that it happens, right? So, like we're saying, we're trying to make sure it never happens, but it's going to happen in your care. So, you should be prepared. And that's what's unacceptable when it happens and everyone just like panics and hides away. And they just leave the one nurse who's done it before to maybe walk in and check on you here and there. But you need to have a proper plan. And so, in our case, I do feel like they tried a little bit to normalize certain things. Like they did offer that I should hold my son, which is very important, I think. But other than that, they didn't talk about memory making, which is a big thing now because it's your only time with your child. Maybe a day, maybe two or three if you had a C-section, but you will never get that time back. And I think the big part of it is just normalizing for the parent. Whatever you think you'd want to do in this moment is okay. And if you want to dress your child in a different outfit than what we have here, have someone bring it over, or if you want to read to your baby and sing to your baby, like that's okay. It's not weird because that's one thing I think you feel like, will this be too morbid? Like, why would I take photos of my baby or videos? But you will later think, why didn't I? I wish I
Mm.
had a video of my son and myself with my baby. I don't have that. I don't have a lock of his hair because no one offered it to me. And I didn't think I could ask. All the things that you do, I think, for a newborn are really special later. Like some people have like the lock of hair. That's just so simple. Like you would do that once your baby's bigger, of course you'd cut the lock of hair, but I don't have anything physical of him. I have this bear now that represents him and his weight and stuff like that, but it's nothing to do with him. I have the blanket that he was wrapped in. They gave me that. But some moms prefer, I would have rather him wrapped in something I chose for him that I had at home. But there's just a lot of little things that I think you can just say to the mom and the dad, this is still your baby, so please feel free to do whatever you want with the baby. And some people may not have the strength to do any of that. And it's also respecting that and giving them space to grieve however we're going to grieve because it's so hard. And the good advice that I got about the photos was like, take the photos that they were offering, professional photos, and if you don't feel like you want to look at them, you don't have to. They're going to give you the file and then you'll have them. And in the future, if you want to look at them, and I know some parents who've never looked at their photos, they're still waiting for the moment. But I'm thankful I even have a few of those good quality photos, and I didn't get a lot. But I would suggest anything you can do to encourage the parent to have something to hold on to later, because that's it. That's all we're going to have. It's really tough, but I think just making the parent feel okay about any decisions they're going to make there, and also giving us time to digest. For prevention side of this, they don't do a good job usually of discussing like autopsy or what options you have for finding a cause. I think they do it too quickly. It's usually mentioned pretty quick right after because they want to know what they're doing with the baby. And you're not ready. You literally just gave birth to your baby that you now know is not going to be with you the rest of your life. And now they're asking you, is it okay for us to do an autopsy? And the way they describe it, sometimes it can be just so inappropriate. Like my doctor, the NICU doctor, did it in a way that I was just like, the answer is no, because you're pretty much making it a no for me. You're telling me it's not the best. You don't have enough trained pathologists. So you're telling me you may not find out the cause from this. You're telling me that a lot of parents like regret it because later they're like, why did we do it? We didn't find a cause. We paid some money and our baby's appearance might have changed a bit, whatever. And I'm like, that's not the way to present this. First of all, give us time. It just happened. Maybe just give the person a piece of paper explaining different options because there are more non-invasive ways to do it, even just blood testing and things that you can choose to do. But don't push it on us right after your baby died and asking us, yes or no, do you want to do this? And explain it in the way that you do. And let us read through it and have someone else that's not involved in the care presenting it too, because that feels very biased to me. Sometimes I don't want to say they do get a little bit in a protective mode. They actually, after the loss, have someone called like a risk management department involved. So it's somebody who starts to answer your questions in your emails about the loss instead of the doctor, like a middleman. And I was like, at some point, I was like, this woman doesn't want me to find anything out. Why? They're involved because they don't want lawsuits. They don't want lawyers involved and things like that. So it really bothers me that they become a blockage for you even finding answers and for them to do any better. And a baby who doesn't have a breath in many states has no rights legally. So regardless of what happened, if it was malpractice or whatever, I couldn't sue for my son's life. I actually went through the process of looking for lawyers because I wasn't getting answers, and I thought that's the only way to get it. They're acting really weird. There must have been something done wrong on their end, and they're hiding it. And so this is what I'm gonna have to do, right? So I can pull out the medical records and find out what the heck happened here. So I start going through this and asking lawyers. And finally, one lawyer calls me back after 50 not even responding. He's, I know you're probably suffering and you're in grief and it's horrible. And I just want you to know the reason you're not getting a response is because in our state of California, your son has no rights. You can't sue for anything for his life. The only thing you could sue is your pain and suffering, which we have capped at $250,000. And that's not nearly enough for us to try this. This is long, it could take years, a trial of this type, to prove that there was any malpractice. So basically, all that to say is the doctors are not really going to get sued. They're pretty protected. So they should just stop with that and let us talk to the doctors. Let us do a debriefing after the loss, go through the pregnancy and give us the closure we deserve and need and for future care. And you guys use it, we'll use it. We'll stop letting babies die. We can learn from this. There doesn't have to be this strange, it's a kind of like a battle in the sense. And I'm like, why don't we work together? We can be saving lives. You messed up on this one if you did, but okay. I wouldn't even feel like I was angry. I was not angry when it happened at them at all. I just accepted it that this was a bad outcome, mistake, something bad happened at the end. Um, but I just wanted the answer so that I can know to try to have another baby. I really wanted my daughter to have a living sibling. And I also wanted to use that and them to use that to improve care. But after that, I got angry because it's like, you don't want me to know for some reason. You are stopping me from helping people and you are just going on with life acting like it didn't even happen. So that's where the anger came from. And I still carry and I still am trying to help them. Like, as much as I reach out, they don't want to talk to me because of whatever lawyers involved. But I'm like, this is ridiculous. I've never had a lawyer myself. And why are lawyers involved when I can't even sue you? So it's
Just
just horrible.
being met with so much unnecessary resistance when really it could be used as a moment of education and improving this system and this experience for so many people. So, as a parent of loss, I spoke about this in the beginning of the episode, but it isolates you because people in your circle want to reach out, but they don't know what to say. Are things like your baby was so loved, they will never be forgotten. This wasn't your fault. Are those helpful to hear? What other phrases can people say to be supportive that is kind, but also not dismissive? Because I have learned that there's a fine line between dismissing someone, and a lot of dismissive comments come from a place of, I want to share my love with them, but sometimes in our words, it comes across as that was really insensitive.
Hmm. I think it's pretty common now that people share in the grief community that anything that starts with at least should never come out of someone's mouth.
At
Because,
least you can have another baby. At least you can get pregnant. At least you already have a healthy baby. Things like that.
or like also even at least you didn't get to know your child yet. Because that's the thing about the grief of a baby that's technically never been alive with you. And you're like, but I had all these dreams for my child. I did feel my child. I had a relationship with my child. You can't just say it's any better because I didn't see my child grow at all. That one's really painful for me. And I think it makes your grief feel like it's not okay too when you're grieving, because I'm going to grieve forever. I'm going to grieve every moment that my son is missing right now. And it might look like to some people that I'm healed. And obviously, I have other children and I'm operating in the world as a human being. I'm not crying every day, all day like I did when it first happened. But that doesn't mean that I'm not grieving anymore. My son should always be there in everything that we're doing. Like, first day of school just happened. Why would anyone assume that it's any easier just because I've
Mm,
done it now so many years, you know? My birthday passes and I'm sad. My son didn't get a birthday. So people
mm.
just need to acknowledge. And it's even hard because it's like, Happy Mother's Day. I'm like, what's not happy? Just say, I hope you have a gentle day. I'm thinking of Owen and your kids. Like, you're such a good mom to all of them. Something about that is fine for me. But like, pushing happiness on a lost mom is hard. I think people want us to be okay. And that's very loving. Like you said, people come from a good space. They want you to be better. They want you to be happy again. They don't want you to be changed. And the sad thing is I am changed. I am never going to be the same person. I live with anxiety. I live with sadness. And my son, Owen, is always like in my thoughts every moment.
Anna, I'm
If
so,
people respect that, you know?
yeah.
And the grief of a mom too is really interesting because I think in general mental health is just starting to get its day, or people starting like, that's okay, that's a health concern. You're not weird for having that issue or whatever. But with grief of child loss or baby loss especially, it's so misunderstood. And immediately following the loss, I'm going to see my doctor, and you get your postpartum checkup because you did give birth, and they're like looking at you like, this woman is still devastated. What's wrong with her? She's crying and she just can't control. Like when you're asked, how are you feeling? Of course, you're going to break down. You're in this appointment with the doctor, safe space. So you tell them how you're feeling, and they just are just like, let's give her some medicine. Like she's going through too much. This is unhealthy, like a level of depression and everything. And they just think they can medicate you. And they offered me medicine. I was so like offended that I was like, do you really think that I'm not responding in a normal manner to the death of my child? And it's only been 6 weeks that I've had to digest that. And even now, if I go to see a therapist, it's like, you have long-term grief or whatever, the prolonged grief that they're calling it now. I'm like, yeah, no, really. I'm a mother who lost a baby, a child. I'm going to grieve forever. That sucks, but it's not going to go away. So I think people just need to understand that about us. And yeah, like just anytime you can bring up a person's child is a gift. And you might think it's hard to come up with the right words, but any way you can mention them, it's going to make our day. And I think you don't need to be scared that you're going to make us sad again. We're going to have that in our thoughts all the time. You can't just think, oh, if I bring it up and she looks like she's handling today so good, I don't want to bring it up because she might start crying. And the tears sometimes are happy tears
Mm.
that you remembered with us. It's okay to see the tears. Like you said earlier, I might cry, and that's beautiful that you let yourself emote with the person that's grieving, because that
That's
makes you
super
feel less
helpful to
alone.
hear.
Like
Yeah.
I feel so lonely, especially right after. I was like, no one understands this. And even your own husband might not have the same level or type of grief as you because they didn't carry the babies. And when you start to meet other lost parents too, that's really healing on this journey, because immediately after I was like, I can't handle hearing anyone else's stories. I can't, I'm emotional, I'm an empath. If I start hearing more loss, I'm going to just never come out of the black hole that I'm in. But now that I've been a lost mom for a while, that community is what really pulls me through some days. Because if someone doesn't mention Owen, I know someone on my Instagram will message me or send me a butterfly or say something really sweet and like how he's helping people or whatever. And I can be like, oh, okay, I can feel a little bit happier in that day. So I think it's good to connect with people online too. If you don't feel it's like your family doesn't get it, they're not there for you the way that you want them to be, you have to at some point say, okay, I have to give them grace. They're not the ones living this, but there are people who are living it, and we can help each other and we can remember our babies together. And I think a lot of the times when I do what I do, because I'm a public account now to raise awareness, I just think of the other parents in my shoes, especially the ones that are recent lost parents, and I want to give them some hope that we can do some really amazing things in memory of our children, and we can do it together. And even if they can't do it right now, like I'm doing it for them. I'm speaking for all of us.
You saying to keep your baby's name alive and to ask about them, but don't be worried about making you sad is so validating because I think that is what stops a lot of us. I succumb to that thinking of, oh, I want to reach out and say, oh, I was thinking about Owen today. I saw a butterfly. Oh, there's another lady that I met in September and she does orange. Everything's orange. So when I see something that's like a bright orange, I think about her face and I think about her baby. She was one of the first people I saw with a bear, too. I was like, oh my gosh, there is another lady that also uses a butterfly. So there's not a single butterfly that comes into my life that I don't think about both of your faces and your babies. And it's like a constant reminder of why this work is really important. I think it's very helpful to hear from someone who has experienced loss on how we can help, because we both know it can be awkward, it can be uncomfortable. We want to bring them up, especially once we know you want to talk about them, because the natural instinct is don't bring it up. I don't want to be the reason that they cry or be sad, exactly like you said. And I think once you learn, okay, bring up their babies, then the question is, how do I do that? So it's really helpful to know exactly how to do that. Along the lines of sharing things, Sharon Owen's story is very hard for you. You've talked about your motivation. You've talked about how you push through and why you continue to share it, even though it is reliving that day all over again. How do you do it in a way that empowers parents but doesn't scare them, but shares obviously a very real concern that could happen?
I think the main thing for people is to know that there are reasons people share. I think a lot of people sometimes tune us out because they're like, oh gosh, it's a horrible story, or this is just one mom and she just can't get over her grief or whatever. But the reason we're talking is because we are trying to help you, we're trying to empower you, and we are trying to give you like the tidbits that came out of our loss that we think is preventative. And when I do it, that is why I sometimes try to breeze over the details, because I'm like, it's not going to happen this way exactly to you. If it did, that would be really weird. But like, you can see I spoke up and they didn't listen. Okay, at that point, this is your tip. You need to be demanding. You need to do a little bit more aggressiveness than I did, even though I thought I did a pretty good job. But I didn't realize at the time how dangerous this can be because I was low risk. So knowing the facts, you knowing that it happens in low risk pregnancies, and it might be just because of the level of care isn't the same as the high risk ones. There's no necessary risk there for you that you can see, but just being aware, like, I'm still at risk and my baby is my baby, and I'm going to be the one to advocate for this baby all the way through until the finish line. So they're here, and then I'm going to keep doing that the rest of their life.
Oh, yeah.
So we do try to encourage people to hear what we're saying, and don't worry, I think, so much about the grief. And sometimes we come out with things that are like, oh man, that's really awful, I don't want to hear that. But I'm telling you, no one checked my baby's cord. So maybe you might want to do that. You might want to ask at your next appointment, what's going on with my baby's cord? Is it
Hmm.
the right length? Is it hypercoiled at all? Is it inserted properly into the placenta? Where is the placenta? Is there any issues there? Keep digging and keep asking, because otherwise you're just going to be treated like the low risk patient that you are and breeze through the normal pee in the cup, blood tests. Goodbye, everything looks good. Measure, if they measure your baby, okay, baby's growing normal, but they're not looking at the placenta. So I do think when we do talk about our stories, we do try to highlight stuff like that, and then you can take it and use it.
Yeah, it's super helpful. Look, I'm the biggest advocate. I've learned so much, and you have made me a better doula, a better woman, a better advocate, a better person just in the women's health sphere altogether. And yeah, I agree. It's heavy on everybody. I know how hard it is for you guys to share your stories continuously. And I've shared that it's really tough on me to hear these stories. I feel things really deeply. But without these conversations, you're right, we're never, ever going to move the needle forward and lower that number of preventable stillbirths that did not have to happen. A place that I would like to wrap up, because I would be remiss if we didn't talk about this. Let's talk about some quick stats and how there are disparities in stillbirth. What kind of trends do we see? We know that Black and Brown women experience it more. What if you have had a previous stillbirth? Are we seeing any sort of geographical patterns, like down south, people experience it more, or in one part of our country over the other? What do we know about the stats of stillbirth?
Yeah, there is definitely disparities. So Black families are at least twice more likely. And then there is a higher rate in AAPI, so Asian Pacific Islanders, and Native Americans, and then Hispanics after that. And this is to say these are risks, this is a number, but why? It's not their bodies, it's not them, it's not something innately wrong with a certain background, but there are different care given to them. So we do point out there might be even racism involved, or just plain like writing people off. Like, they complain, they're complaining again. It just tends to happen to certain communities more, but that's why we consider that racism, right? There's discrimination happening. For those families, don't be worried just because you're Black, you're not going to have this happen to you, but just be aware that you do need to be more aware of your care team. Are they really listening to you? Do you feel like they respect you? Maybe you need to find someone. We're seeing a lot of women who want to have someone who looks like them caring for them, and that might be important for you. Or you might want to have your doula come to every appointment to back you up. Make sure your partners too, like dads could be a lot more involved than they are. I think traditionally it's been dads outside the room and now they're in the room, but they're really just sitting there waiting. They don't know what's happening. Like men can also be advocates, and you could be in there talking to the doctors, asking questions and helping back up your partner, because sometimes they aren't listened to because of paternalism, even for women. So also, yeah, like you said, there's certain parts of the nation that we have the maternity care desert, so there will obviously be worse rates there. And there's a lot going on too with just maternity care in general. I don't want to go into the other issues, but it's just hard as a woman to get the care you need. As far as the rates, I don't really love sticking to numbers because I do think that creates the fear that we don't want. It's more about let's keep discussing what you can do differently and make sure you get your care.
Yeah. We also know that the numbers are underreported and reported incorrectly, which is one of the things that the SPA, the Stillbirth Prevention Act, is hopefully going to
And the Shine for
change.
Autumn Act, the Shine for Autumn Act is the
Yeah.
next bill that we're working on as a group. And if we get that one passed, that will improve data collection, improve also training of pathologists. So we would have more of those hopefully in the country. So the data issue is my big issue, really. We didn't really go into it because this is the wrong community, I think, really to hear about it. But the whole story with that is that the way data is collected is not the best, and it's done differently state by state. And in my case, in many cases, they have to report it right away. So it's incorrect, insufficient information in there. So mine only says my son died, he was a fetal demise, natural causes. That gives nobody in research or anywhere to use any information for future care or what we should be doing in the country. So we're trying to standardize that to be done differently. I wanted to actually have my sons amended after I found the cause, and they refused. The doctor actually asked the lawyers. It took a whole year for me to get a response, and then she said, "I'm sorry, the lawyers told me I can't do it." So I was like, what is that? I'm telling you a reason why this baby died now, and you could possibly use it. The country could use it. Health department, whoever wants to grab that data could use it. And right now it's got nothing to give. And that bothers me as a mom just in general, because I'm like, my son died for a reason. I want that clearly, correctly, in there, but they won't fix it. I think that's the next step too. And I don't know for sure that Shine will fix that part of it, but if it does, that would be great, because we need to have more of an automated process where it's like a doctor receives a new report. Autopsies take a little while. If you're filling out that form in that first week so that the family can bury their child or cremate, you don't have anything to add. You may not put anything in there. And so the autopsy may never get input, like whatever comes back from that. They have been looking into that. Like the NIH has really done some good reporting on it lately, that they're just like, this is not acceptable. This data is just
Good.
so, yeah. So we will be working on that. But all that to say for the moms listening is that we don't have enough data out there. So don't just look at stats, and just understand yourself, your baby, know you're normal, know how they're moving, and advocate for yourself. And that's the best
Yeah.
you can do.
Yeah. Make sure that you're seeing eye to eye with your provider. And if you have access to change providers, then do. But if you don't, then you can reach out to our team. You can reach out to Push Pregnancy. You can reach out to Dr. Heather Florescu. There are so many, I won't say so many. There are a number of organizations out there who are willing to help you and teach you and step you through this advocacy piece so that you can actually get the care that you and your baby deserve. Anna, it was truly a pleasure to have you on the show today. I know that we got deep into things. I know we talked about a very sad and heavy topic, but you have said it before, and I'll continue to say it. Owen did not die in vain. You are using his life and his livelihood to change the world. Oh, I promise I would break down. You're doing good work, and I appreciate everything that you're doing. And I know that we're going to be able to get our country to a place where we really do have proper access and we really do have good, solid foundation and education. And we really do have all of the equipment and the education and the skills and the knowledge and the data collection that our doctors need to truly and wholly take care of families, even when bad things happen. So thank you so much. I want to know how you guys keep Owen alive in your everyday life. Do you talk about him with your kids? Do you guys celebrate his birthday? Do you carry pictures around with you? How do you keep Owen alive?
Yeah, Owen's everywhere. My husband joked me the other day because I wear shirts from my charity a lot and it has his name. And he's like, "You're a walking billboard for Owen."
Of course I am.
I have his necklace. I have a necklace all the time, usually one of these with the footprints on it, because for me it shows obviously that he was a baby that was born. And some people ask about it sometimes, so I get to say, "Oh, this is my son who's not here." When anyone asks us, obviously we say we have three children, but our middle child and sadly didn't make it, but we never don't count him. And my kids don't like chat about him per se all the time, but my little one now, actually, the funny thing is he was here after Owen. He's my rainbow baby, but he's the one who'll bring Owen up more because they were both boys and he was 2 years apart and he could have had a nice playmate. So he'll be like, "Oh, I wish Owen was here." And that makes my heart really hurt. At the same time, it's like nice that he doesn't forget his brother. And my daughter now, she's 13, and I drag her around to like advocacy stuff because she loves going to DC anyway. And I'm like, "Come on, we're gonna go speak for our family," and she just stands with me. I'm like, it's important for people to know that this affects the entire family, and children grieve too when they're missing their brother, and they should have another sibling between them. So I like to have them all included when I can, like when we do any kind of events or press or as much as possible. And my husband too, he has been through a lot. Obviously, like I told him the story with the trauma of the birth, that it's like devastating for him really to think about it. So he doesn't like to advocate in the sense like I do because it's just too much for him, but he will obviously support me and he knows I'm in meetings like this, like doing calls, and like he handles the kids as much as I need when I need to run around and go to DC and stuff like that. So it's a family affair to make this kind of work happen. And I think we're obviously doing birthdays. I'll never not do his birthday because I always thought I'm a big birthday person. My first, she got the biggest parties you've ever seen. I used to do events for a living, so I went a little crazy with her. There's no way for his first birthday I'm not doing something, even if it's small and it's at home. And so I buy a certain theme of things and we all pick out a little treat that the kids are going to get and we go somewhere or we have cake or however we want to do it. But we did do a butterfly release his first birthday. That's why it's my thing now. But and Jackson will see a butterfly. "Oh, it's one of Owen's butterflies." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. They're still floating around after all these years." That's our way to say it's like our Owen wink. I like to say whenever I see something that reminds me of my son, I'm like, "Oh, he's thinking of me right now," because I do feel like it's nice to feel like you're still connected. I'm his mom forever, and this is how I mother him as an advocate and being able to speak his name. It's just the way I do it. But regardless, I'm his mom, no matter how I'm going to do that. So, like, everyone does it differently. You might see some people who can't talk about it, and that's okay for them. I don't feel like anyone should feel pressure to be like me or other lost moms who are very vocal, but it's how I choose to do it. And I feel good about it. And I thank you for having me on to be able to share him because this is probably the only time I really will talk about him today. And it doesn't come up every moment anymore. Your regular family and friends may stop asking or saying anything about them
Mm.
after a while, and that really hurts because you feel like they're just moving on with life and they just forgot about your child. But obviously, I know now that's not true. They just don't know what to say, and then they're grieving in their own way. But I get to talk about Owen. This is my choice, and this is how I'm doing it.
I appreciate you being here, and I'm thankful that you shared Owen's story. And I'm really grateful that I get to be part of this community and this organization to help you guys move the needle forward. I care so deeply about it because I am much like you and all the other lost moms. I'm really ashamed that our country has let things get this way and that we haven't given it more thought, more money, more investigation, more time, more light. And I'm really committed to seeing that change and to making that happen. And I appreciate you guys giving me the space to be able to do that and to learn about it and to give me a voice to be able to share about this. So thank you. We are all in this together, coming from different backgrounds and different experiences. If people wanted to connect with you on Instagram or they wanted to learn more about Push Pregnancy or the class offering that you guys have, tell us where we can find you and Push and the class.
So I'm still my son on all platforms. That's my personal one. And I am public, like I said, so feel free to follow and DM me if you have any questions. And then Push Pregnancy is the account for our charity. And we do manage that as well. Personally, we're all bereaved parents, so you'll be speaking to one of us. And we do have a training, which we're very proud of because it actually got requested by the first Rainbow Clinic that came to the United States, which is Mount Sinai, that we founded and we helped fund with Mount Sinai. So we're partnered with them to provide them what they needed financially just to be able to do this, but also through the training, which they needed, because the big part about care after loss is like just having the right things to say, like you were asking earlier. And it's a trauma-informed care course that you can take if you're a provider or a doula, whoever works with families. It's really easy because it's self-paced, it's online. I know your team took it, and we're so thankful for your review of that. And it was a lot of work. A lot of us gave testimonies, personal videos are in there, but it'll teach you the proper way to discuss certain things throughout a pregnancy after loss and how to care for that parent, which is a very different type of pregnancy, as I'm sure you can imagine. You're just so afraid and you think at any moment something can happen again. So you just need a little more hand holding and just respectful conversations about your baby that you lost, because a lot of times people forget about that baby and they want to say like you're a first time mom if it's your second, or don't even mention your baby's name ever, things like that. So it's a lot of information you can use, and that's at pushpregnancy.thinkific.com. And of course, our website, pushpregnancy.org, has a lot of great information, and we're actually renovating right now. So you'll see a much easier to navigate site soon, but it has so much. We just packed it. We were just like, let's keep putting stuff in there. This would have been helpful for us. This is great tips. There's a lot of tools. There's things for providers. There's things for parents. There's a lot of advocacy stuff there too. If you want to be an advocate, you can sign up and be a change maker with us. You don't have to be a lost mom, but we welcome everyone. And especially people who aren't. I always say this is really sadly already happened to us. And the only reason we're still fighting for it is because we know how horrible it is. But the people who are still wanting to have babies or working with families, you guys should be really invested in this as well. And that's why you coming along, I know maybe you found a place for a few moments there with all of us with our bears and our baby stories and stuff, but it's you really matter because you are the one that's caring for parents now. I don't have any clients or patients. This is more so for the future families and for, I have a daughter who knows that she'll have children, but God forbid, I didn't do anything to help. And like you said, it's not great. Our country is one of the bottom in terms of making this any better, if we're looking at numbers again, but we should be doing much better. We have the resources. We spend the most on maternity care of other countries. And this is what's happening. It's because it's a for-profit business, sadly, in our country. And so we're the consumers. We need to demand what we need, and we're doing that now together. So let's just keep getting louder. Let's just keep going to DC and doing the calls from home, whatever you can do. We really appreciate it. And any support you can give us would be really appreciated.
Absolutely. On the Push Pregnancy website, is there a place for people to donate money if they wanted to be involved monetarily?
Yes, absolutely. And I hate asking for money, but money keeps things going. And
Yeah.
we're all volunteer right now, but there are projects we like to do faster. Money makes that happen. We had a PSA recently with Earth Mom Organics, who's a partner of ours. They're so great with us. They're trying to help us move things along financially too. So their support has helped things happen that we just dreamt of. And they were like, yeah, let's do it. We're like, really? Okay, so we have a PSA now that people can learn about the risk of stillbirth. It's out there in the world and over 1 million views. So like that stuff is really important. And so yeah, if you want to run a fundraiser for a birthday or however you want to do it on Facebook, we're on there too. So we really appreciate any help, of course. And of course, just time. Some people don't have money to give. Just go on and sign up with us as a change maker. You can come to our meetings and hear what we're doing and see what you want to do. If certain things you can do, or you have connections, or you want to collaborate, we can definitely get our word out to more people that way.
Yeah. Or even you guys, just as simply as knowing about pushpregnancy.org and sharing it with a pregnant friend or family member. It's as simple as that. We don't need your time. We don't need your money. Just share the word. Just let people know that there are organizations out there. Let them know that stillbirth happens and there's ways to prevent it. And you just wanted to share an organization and a resource to help them be better informed. Oh my gosh. Yes, I have to just put this final little plug in. Our team did take the Push Pregnancy After Loss course, and it is because our team does so many births, and we just know statistically, eventually in this work, you will experience that. And I wanted our team to be prepared, not only for our own selves so that we knew what to expect, but I wanted us to be able to better serve any mom and family that came to us that experienced that tragedy. And I can wholeheartedly say that if you are in women's health at all, you don't even have to be a birth worker, but anywhere in the women's health sphere, take this training, you guys. It changed our team. It really did. We spent an entire day diving into the course. We would stop it. We would discuss. We would pause it, and we would put together a list of resources. We have compiled different phrases and things that we know are good responses that will be comforting to people. So our team is prepared for ourselves and for our clients. And if we happen to be in a hospital system or around hospital professionals that don't have this training, at least one person in that room will know the next steps on how to bring comfort to these families. So truly, I cannot speak better words about this course. If you're interested in it, or if you're in the women's health sphere at all, please check it out and see if it's something that might be able to help you have a better practice and better support people. Anna, thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
being here with us today. Truly.
Big kudos for doing this because, like you said at the beginning, you were not that aware about stillbirth that when you first started as an advocate with us and you
Yeah.
just jumped in. And I'm like, that's a scary space to be sometimes when you feel like you're not the one that knows the most about the topic, but you do know about moms and you do know about babies and you want them here. And I just really appreciate your heart for that. That is what we are too. We're the same. We might come from different spaces, and sadly, ours is from the bad spot of the trauma of death of our babies. We have the same goal, and people like you are the ones that are going to help us reach the moms that are currently pregnant or wanting to be. And I couldn't thank you enough for being brave to do this conversation.
Thank you very much. I definitely don't feel brave. I just feel a sense of responsibility to get this information out to people. I have platforms and I want to use it to amplify messages that will improve our healthcare, our maternity care, and will save lives. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing Owen's story. He is so loved and so missed, and he'll never be forgotten. And you are doing a wonderful job of helping us improve maternity care. So thank you. Thank you so much. Listeners, thank you for being here. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Be sure to follow Anna and Push Pregnancy on social media, and you can find me at Tranquility by HeHe and at the.birth.lounge. Until next time, head to your app store and download the Birth Lounge app for evidence-based childbirth education and data-driven postpartum support delivered straight to your phone. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I truly do value this community and I love hanging out with you. You deserve to have a birth that you love with a provider that values your autonomy and respects informed consent. It's an honor to be your go-to gal when it comes to preparing for your baby. If you found today's episode helpful, share it with a friend. Share it with someone who could use evidence-based information to help them have an informed and confident birth. I'd love to hear what you have to say and read your sweet words. By leaving us a review, you are helping other expectant mamas and their families find the podcast so that we can reduce birth trauma and improve maternity care in the U.S. one birth at a time. If you're interested in joining the Birth Lounge, go to thebirthlounge.com. If you want to connect with me on socials, you can find me at Tranquility by HeHe on all platforms. Until next time, stay educated, stay supported, stay confident. Bye.